Hey guys, welcome to my studio. My name is David Smith and I'm here to share my passion for watercolor with you guys. I want to thank Joe Miller and all the great crew there at Cheap Joe's for allowing me to, again, share my passion for watercolor. And I'm not sure when you're watching this, but it's now May 2020 and things have been a little strange and people are practicing social distancing and they're trying to stay home and stay safe. So I thought this would be a great time to give a little demonstration and also just let people know I'm still teaching. I was traveling around teaching, but now I'm teaching some online workshops. So those links are below, or you can check out my website. What I want to do today is show you some effects to get the impression of mist, such as this or this guy here. Let me see if I can find a couple other ones. Here's a popular misty painting. All right, let's see, I think there's one more in here somewhere. All right, so that's the one I thought would be something we could try and tackle today. Something fast and fun, a simple composition. You wouldn't need to draw for this one. It's all organic shapes. There's nothing, there's not a person or, eagle or geese we need to try and put in there, but you're welcome to, throw some birds in. But yeah, so I hope that you'll give this a shot with me, get your paints out and give this a try. And my objective is to show you how I create those soft and gloss edges, the texture, the glow. And then again, I'm going to be teaching some online workshops, and you're welcome to join me for more complex paintings. In fact, maybe I'll show you a couple. I don't always paint just misty lake scenes. Well, here's some other examples of other paintings that I've done that are a little tighter, right? Let's see. So sometimes I'll mask and pour, like all those whites were masked. And same thing here, those whites and a lot of those lights were all masked. And in the peony as well, that was a masked and pouring painting. And there was quite a bit of masking done in there as well. But here's some paintings that are not complete, but here's another approach to painting where I fill the canvas with color and let the water run through and create these amazing textures. Isn't that fun? Oh God, I'm looking over to the left because I'm trying to see what you guys are seeing on my computer screen. And here's another one. Again, it's not finished, but you get a feel for all the fun textures that are created in that process. What else have I got? So this is another painting. It's kind of like what I'm going to do today, but obviously a different scene, New York City skyline. And I do a lot of spattering of water and spattering paint to create those textures. Same thing here. I do a lot of spattering and of paint and of the water. Here's some more misty lake scenes and a lot of spatter in the water. And so you can see, I don't know if you can, let me zoom in on here, all the cool textures that are created when I spatter water into that. Isn't that fun? And you get those soft and lost edges into those trees. Here's another one. You can see it gives the impression of spattering water on this, gives me the impression of mist coming up off the lake into those trees. So just this is a great time. We're at home to experiment and play around with some different. Let me do this instead. Play around with some different techniques and just have fun. And you don't have to do crashing waves. You can do just a simple graded wash. And then I've got a little cabin back there and a wolf in the mist. All right. So, and again, I work on different types of paper. This is actually Fabriano paper. And I think this is Arches paper. So I work on a variety. This is Fabriano paper. And again, I want to show you how to create this lost edge and how to make it look like mist coming off the lake. All right. So that's the objective. But we're going to do something a little more simple that I think we can knock out in a short amount of time. So we'll do something like this, okay? And when I paint, I'll talk a little bit about my materials. An important material actually is to spatter water. I'll show you how I use this spray bottle. And I've got a couple different ones, one for creating mist and one for creating droplets. but I'll talk about those. And of course, the sponge is an important tool for controlling the amount of moisture on your brush. So all my brushes are synthetic. As my friend said, they're more ethical, and I love animals, so I chose synthetic brushes. And they're just super good quality now, and they last forever, and they're less expensive. This happens to be a Pseudo Squirrel. I've got some Pseudo Sable by American Journey, and I've also got one of my favorite brushes, the synthetic Escoda Perla. It's just got an amazingly sharp point. But all these brushes have nice points, and they're less expensive, last a long time. A brush that people always ask me about is this brush here. All right, so this brush here, this is a Reservoir brush by Dynasty, a 1827 liner faux squirrel reservoir brush. It's worn off, but I've memorized the name because everybody asks me about it. And it's got a fat part and a pointy part. Pointy part, I can get some lines. Fat part, I can fill in, and it just holds more moisture. And you're going to see me play with that quite a bit. And then the palette and the paint. Let me skip over to that. So over here, I've got lots of different colors and brands of paint, mostly Core and American Journey. This is a Cad Yellow, this is a Quin Gold, this is a Bismuth Vandate by Core, Yellow Ochre, this is a Joe's Red, that's actually a Holbein Opera, Alizarin Crimson, Burnt Sienna, no, Brown Madder, Burnt Sienna, Cerulean Blue, Cobalt Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Cobalt Turquoise, Cobalt Teal, Sap Green, Payne's Gray, some gouache, I got some Viridian, I got some indigo there. And again, I think the important thing is to get a professional brand paint. However, I do like American Journey because they're less expensive, and you get these huge 37 milliliter tubes. So with the 37 milliliter tubes, you feel like you can just use more paint, right? So as Gordon McKenzie, my first watercolor instructor, told his class, he said, if you want to get professional results, use a big brush and lots of paint. And so obviously if you got a big 37 milliliter tube, you feel more free to use a lot of paint. I think if you buy a small amount of, small tube of paint, you're a little more cautious. You don't want to use too much, right? Because you just spent that much, spend some money on a little tube there. But if you got a big tube and they're reasonably priced, you feel like, hey, I squirted some out and I still got a lot left. I can go in there and use a lot of pigment and be brave with your pigment. And I think your results are going to be, as Gordon McKenzie said, you're going to get, he says you'll get professional results with lots of paint and big brushes. And I don't always use a big brush. I don't always use lots of paint, but I do like that. And I think it's just nice to buy from somebody you admire. And Joe is just a great guy. I've heard stories about how he's given back to the community. Like I'm teaching a workshop at Dillman's, and they had a fire years back and lost their studio, and Joe had contacted them and said, anything you lost in the fire, I'll replace for free. So he's a great guy. So it's always kind of fun nice to support somebody you admire. All right, so that's the materials: paint, brushes, and the palette. People always ask about my palette, so I'll just show you that quick. Let's see. So the palette, I'm not a huge fan of the palette, but something I did kind of unique is I took some bathroom caulking, and this is I learned this from Gordon McKenzie as well. And he doesn't do it inside his mixing area, but he caulks out on a butcher's tray his wells, at least he used to. But what I did was I caulked out some mixing areas to keep my yellow clean and keep my my darks from getting into other colors. And I can still go in there and mix if I want to, but I typically do most of my mixing on the paper. You'll notice. But so that's what that is. I had bathroom caulking and just caulked out some mixing areas to keep the yellow somewhat clean. Even though it doesn't look super bright, it's cleaner than it would be. Okay, so let's get started. So let's just play over here for a second. And I would just add water, but I want you to be able to see where I'm painting. And let me zoom in on this. Okay. So you can see that I've got a pool of water down here. Well, it's just wet all the way across here. Okay, so I got a bunch of moisture down here. And now I'm using a thirsty brush, a brush that's been wet. Let me go to the palette so well, yeah, I'll go to the palette so you can see what's going on a little bit. So I'm taking a thirsty brush, a brush that's been wet, and then it's been dried on a sponge, all right, to pick up that extra moisture. So it's a thirsty brush. And then up above there, I'm going to put a lot of color here, all right. Okay, so there's a big pool of color. So I took out most of the moisture down here, but then down up above there, there's just a big, huge pool of color. And I'll grab a variety of colors, okay? But I'm going to make sure that it's like a puddle. So, because I want to emphasize something. Okay. So we have greater moisture here, less moisture there. I'm going to tilt this away from me. Tilting it, you can't tell, but it's tilted away from me. And then I'm going to take this, well, you can tell now because there's a bead of color down there, right? Let's see if you can see the bead. All right, see the bead running back and forth? Whoa. All right. So a big bead of color there. And it's obviously it's running that way because you just saw it run down the paper. Now, if I take that greater moisture and I kind of pull it down until it touches the less moisture, look what happens. Do you see how it's crawling uphill? It's crawling towards me. The greater moisture is going against gravity and it's going towards me. And as it does that, it's creating a beautiful edge, a beautiful lost or very, very soft edge, okay? Now this is the mist. This is creating the mist. If you can create this by remembering greater moisture follows less moisture, you will be able to create the illusion of mist. And then above there, we can just pull up, and I'm taking the Joe Miller's, this is the interlocking nylon, and pulling up some trees, and look at the sharp points I can get with it. All right, so, and let's get some different colors in here. This is the Quinn Gold. What I really like to do is not just use the brush, but I also like to spatter water. So I'm going to use this spray bottle and I'm going to tickle the trigger. And when I tickle the trigger, droplets of water come out. Watch. Big droplets of water coming out of there. See that? When I gun it, a mist. I don't want a mist. I don't want mist. I want droplets of water. And then also, at this point, I don't want it flowing away from me anymore. I'm going to have it flat or tilted a little bit towards me, because if this water follows water, right? So if there's a droplet here and it hits in that, and I pull up a tree, it's going to blossom and it might even crawl up. And I don't want it crawling like my tree's blossoming up into the sky, right? Okay, so let's just pull this color up. Should we change some colors just for the fun of it? And what I'm doing to make the branches is I'm just swooping my brush back and forth like little smiley faces, okay? Little smiley faces. So first I do a trunk, and then I swoop back and forth, little smiley faces. All right? And yeah, let's, now, let me grab the Pseudo Sable brush here and pull up. Look at that. I take this and I pull up into the mist. And keep that edge really, really soft. Now, some of it's kind of locked in there because I was going kind of slow. This actually has to be done kind of fast. But you're not going to see that in a minute because I'm going to keep playing here. All right, let's grab some new color here. How about, just for the fun of it, we'll drop in some thicker paint. I'm dropping a thicker paint into the thinner paint. And let's tilt, I have a kind of a fancy little easel. It's on a ball joint of a tripod. And let's drop this in and let the colors blend on the paper. Remember I said I didn't do too much mixing on the palette. I'm actually letting the colors blend on the paper. All right, let's keep this party going here. I'm gonna just scribble up some like bushes or something here. And let's spatter some more water up there. Let the water carve through and create some interesting textures. So I'm letting the colors blend in the paper, letting this color run into the other color. It's all fine. And I tend to go warm and lighter and then get darker and darker and darker. So just to finish this up really quick, I'm going to get some darker colors here. Happens to be some indigo. Dropping that in. Letting those colors run down, mixing on the paper. And then again, I can take another brush. This is kind of my old brush here, so I just use it to scrub with, and I just beat the heck out of it because it's like 6-7 years old. And let's lift up with that old brush that I don't mind beating up on, and see if we can't create a nice soft lost edges, soft and lost edges. There. Isn't that fun? All right. That's an introduction to what we're going to do. And I'll spatter some more water. Create some more texture. And you can play with it as long as it stays wet like this. You can just keep playing with it until you're happy with what you got. So think greater moisture following less moisture, and thinking about thicker pigment into thinner pigment. So think about thinner pigment being very runny and thicker pigment being more like a cream or a paste going into the thin, and then the thicker paint will melt into the thinner paint. Should zoom in for you a little bit more even. All right. And if you spatter enough paint up there, and you decide to pull up more trees, this is the brush I typically use when I pull little trunks up. When it hits a droplet of water, it'll just start forming the limbs all by themselves when it hits those droplets. Of course, you can help it along. I didn't need any more trees. I just can't stop playing. All right, so let's get a bigger painting going now. All right, folks. Now we're going to take what we talked about and we're going to apply that to the little painting, this little guy, and do something similar to this. Now we're going to be working really loose, wet on wet, and spattered water, so we don't really know what we're going to get. But I'll start with the picture up in the top left corner and see if we can't get something similar to that. So I'm working on what's this, 1/8 sheet of a paper, so a pretty small little sheet of paper, just a scratch sheet of paper. And I'm going to start by wetting the whole thing. And it's already got some paint on there because it's just a quick demo, just having some fun. So let's relax, have a good time. Just getting the thing all wet up here. And then I'm going to make a little bullseye, basically actually kind of a half of a bullseye. So I'm going to try and keep some whites down here, or at least some very, very light. We'll just grab this Pseudo Squirrel brush by American Journey, Miller's Pseudo Squirrel, and I'm going to paint some yellow. Okay, so here's some yellow ochre. Let's just do a little bullseye of that. You know, it's a little bit, a little strong. And grab some, I think the other color I used was some alizarin crimson. So grab some alizarin crimson, we'll go around that. And then we're going to grab some blues, probably some cobalt blue, I bet. Grab some cobalt, pull it into the red. All right, let's give that a spatter, a mist, and let's pray to the gods of watercolor it all works out. All right, let's tilt it and let things run and blend on the paper. Let me see if I can get it on the screen for you. Maybe I'll zoom out a little bit so I can keep it in the screen. So I'm spinning it in a circle and I'm wiping the edge. Spinning it, wiping the edge. Whoops, don't want to get the tissue on the paper though, because it'll wipe off too much paint. All right. And it'll give you some weird textures. Well, definitely got a glow going here. I'm going to miss this over here. This hopefully doesn't get me too much trouble. Keep it nice and soft. I'm wiping the edge for two reasons. One, I don't want the water to crawl along the edge, and then, for example, I wouldn't want this blue to crawl along the edge here and then get inside and create some greens. It'd be all right if it happened, but rather not let that happen. And also, I don't want lots of water to collect, like maybe underneath the tape, and then we know greater moisture follows less moisture. I don't want that coming back out, because it would come back out later, because greater moisture would be attracted to the less moisture on the surface of the paper, because the surface of the paper is going to dry faster than any water underneath the tape, right? So then the greater moisture is going to be wicked out by the less moisture, and when it gets wicked out, it would push the pigment and you get blossoms and blooms. So I got a nice glow happening already, but it's still very much alive. It's still moving and crawling around. So you know what I'm going to do, just to speed up the process so we can get back to painting, is I'll keep spinning it as I blow it with the hairdryer. And we'll just pray that nothing bad happens. I think it'll be fine. All right, so I'm going to dry it and spin it. All right, so we're done drying. Do you see what happened up on the top? I wasn't very careful when I was wiping the edge, and my tissue hit the paper and picked up some of that pigment, so it's something to be careful of. I may have gotten some opera in there. It looks pretty pinky, but it's all right. It's fine. So again, so far what we've done is we've wet the paper. We did a kind of a semi-bullseye of yellow, then red outside the yellow, pull it into the yellow, blue outside the red, pull it into the red, sprayed it, tilted it, wiped the edges, dried it, and now we're going to work in layers. Just like we see in the top left corner there, we're going to work in layers. We'll try and follow that example. We'll do a mountain, and then we'll start doing some closer mountains, which are going to get more defined, darker in value. And so it's going to start kind of light and warm, and then as it moves into the foreground, they're going to get darker and darker and more defined. Okay, so first thing, let's zoom in a little bit, and let's let's create a nice, I like to start by spattering, even if I want a nice straight edge of a mountain. All right, I'm gonna grab the flat Pseudo Sable Joe's flat brush here. So 1.5 inch flat. It's gonna wet down here so that if my mountains, when my mountains will have a soft edge to them, the bottom will have a soft edge. All right, get the American Journey Interlock nylon here. We're gonna create a distant mountain. Very light in value. Okay, I want that to disappear. I don't want any bottom to that mountain. It's enveloped by mist. All right, and then maybe it'll even disappear over here too. I'm gonna spatter some water on it because I like to work a little crazy at the get-go. Okay, and then, yeah, I got some like pink in there, I think. Let's keep this soft right in here. It's already kind of drying up on me a bit. Get my stiff beat up brush here. Keep it soft in there. Get some violet. All right, so we got this distant mountain here. That's in the mist. We probably won't even see too much of that, you know, by the time we're done, because we're going to gonna have lots of layers here. All right, so that's our first layer, just a distant mountain in the mist. All right, gotta dry that up. But of course I want to spatter more water because I just love to spatter water. Okay, now I'll dry it up. Okay, now we're ready for our next layer. So each layer, it looks like it's gonna get darker and darker. So now if we look in the top left corner, the next layer is over here on the left, and I can start to see more detail now. I start to see some tops of trees. So I'm gonna start the same way I did the last time. I'm going to wet underneath where that distant mountain might be. Out of the way, and I'll spatter some water. That'll keep it nice and loose. And I'm going to use this brush here, because then I can use the mop of it or the tip of it here. Okay, what color should we use? We're going to get cooler and cooler, but we'll still grab that. We'll still grab that same yellow ochre, and let's bring the water up and hit the edge of that. All right. And then we'll grab some of that alizarin crimson, bring that in there. All right, letting the colors mix on the paper. Isn't that fun? All right, and then we'll grab some of the violet we have mixed up here. And let's start pulling some trees, some tops of trees up here. That might be a bit strong, but it'll get lighter. So a little like sawtooth. Just the tops of the trees way off in the distance. Let's spatter some water on that and let those colors blend. And let's wipe this puddle here on the edge. cliff there, it looks like. Get that a little more tree-like. And let's not get our hand up there. Oops. Oh, we got a big thumbprint there. That's all right. Looks good. There we go. No problem. Okay. I'll just fade that off. Okay. So this is kind of cool, but we're gonna take that off though. We'll use my scrubby brush, my old 5-year-old brush, and we'll lift up into it, soften that edge. Cool. All right. Let's make sure that my thumbprint doesn't haunt us later. Fade that out. All right, I think I'm ready to dry it again. Gosh, are my hands that dirty? All right. It's good, it's good. Leave it alone, leave it alone, leave it alone. All right, let's dry it. All right, it's dry. We're ready for our next layer. So notice this layer is a little bit darker than this layer, okay? So each layer is gonna get darker and darker and darker. And notice also that the colors of the hills and the distant mountain, they kind of follow the colors of the sky. So in the warm area, you know, in the yellow area, it was kind of yellowy gold, and then it got more cooler as it moved off into the cooler area of the sky. Same thing here, it's kind of yellowy and some red, and then it got cool as it moved into the cool area. So I kind of follow the colors that are provided by that first wash of sky color. All right, now we're going to do a next layer of trees, and they're going to get even darker and cooler as things move into the closer and closer to us. All right, I'm going to wet underneath. All right, I'm going to spatter water over everything. Start with this crazy brush here, and this is the reservoir brush, the Dynasty reservoir, and I think I'll start with a little bit of that warm color. All right, let's see, how high do I want to go up? Let's see. Okay. Let's spatter some more water. Keep it loose here. Making like little smiley faces, like little U-shapes back and forth. And the U-shapes get bigger and bigger as it gets closer to the base of the tree. But we're just seeing, like, we're not seeing the whole tree because the tree's shrouded in mist, right? Okay. putting some of that alizarin crimson into the mix here. Of course, I had a huge droplet up there, so we just give that a tissue. I'm going to just bring that up a little higher. Let's spatter some more water. And I'm going to use the big flat here and go up into it, create the illusion of mist coming up into it. Give them a couple more towels handy. So I like to work pretty wet. Break that up a bit. Okay. I'm going to use some clean water and just pull up some clean water because this is still moving. I got it tilted to the right, so it's going to crawl over there. And I want it to be really light, like it's fading into the mist off to the left there. So I'm just getting some clean water. Got like some visible trees off in the distance there. So I want everything to fade. And spatter some more water. Get a little stronger pigment in a few places. So grabbing some, that's the yellow ochre. And here's the alizarin. And some more spattered water. And the thirsty brush coming up. Don't scratch though, don't hit the ferrule. Whoop. Don't pull up the pigment and then put it somewhere else. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's get some invisible trees over here too. And then how about on the other side here? This is kind of fading out that way. And then on the other side, we'd have it continue. Probably shouldn't switch colors. And then let's get some of that violet. All right, so looking like some distant trees, hopefully. Let's spatter some water on those guys too. And let's get my scrubbing brush, and we'll lift up with a thirsty brush here, up into the trees. Keep the bottom soft. Let the colors blend on the paper. That looks pretty good. Making sure everyone's got some limbs on them. All right, and spattering some more water. So the important thing is underneath the trees, we want hard edges. So you need droplets of water and you need dry paper up here. You've got to have dry paper. If you don't have dry paper, you won't get hard edges. Like I got hard edges around the trees. Underneath the trees, we want it wet, you know, really wet. Not like running wet, but more of a dull wet or a shiny wet, but not super runny. Want to have some control. I've got it tilted at diagonal to help things continue to move across the paper. Just I think that's pretty good. I'm going to dry it, and I'm going to spatter some. I'm going to turn the hairdryer off first, of course. Spatter some more water. Turn the hairdryer off. Spatter some more water. All right, so let's see what we got now. Not bad. Here's some things, if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't want these to be ending so close. This one's a little bit further over to the left, but we definitely wouldn't want, you know, things lining up, you know, so maybe I could have had it go a little further and actually even overlap this guy a little bit, you see. Also, look at how it went from red to kind of more of a blue. I did start with red over here because I wanted that color to transition, you know, I didn't want it to, you know, switch from one color to another. It should continue on. So I started with red, but it got a little bit too blue. So maybe I should have brought some blue over here, or I should have brought more red over here, and maybe brought this out farther. And little things like that is kind of what I'm looking for. But yeah, overall it's just fine. Just little nitpicky things that I look for when I paint. All right, so next stage. It's going to get cooler and darker and more and larger. The trees will get larger and larger. And so I might start incorporating some indigo or Payne's Gray into the mix of cools now. So we'll have this one overlap. We got to make sure this guy, let's bring him way over here. We'll bring him way down here. So yeah, I'm almost tempted to, you know, we could, well, I'll show you what let's go ahead and do it. Let's just get some clean water and just drop a little bit of more trees in here. We'll just wet this area right here. And we'll just pull up a few more. We'll just grab this brush, it's got a nice point. This is a pseudo squirrel, it's got a nice point to it. Let's just grab some of that same color. Let's spatter some water up there. And let's just get a few more trees over here. Nice and light, that fade off. And we want those to kind of connect to what we got here. There we go. So now it continues on, right? I think that's enough. Maybe a little bit higher. There we go. All right, that's good. All right, let's dry that up just a little. So it just continues a little bit further, kind of overlaps even. I could even go a little bit further, maybe even overlap it a little bit. How about that? There, that's better. All right, now I'll dry it. Another thing I wanted to mention was, if you zoom in here, let's see, we can see some of the textures that are being created when I drop in, throw in water, right? And just like this guy, you can see all the little textures in those trees. That's spattered water. I don't use, well, it's not that I don't ever use salt, I guess, but I didn't use salt, and it's all water, just spattered water. All right, so that's what's giving those little holes that effect there. All right, so this is what we got so far. Trees off in the distant mist. So far, so good. All right. Now, let's get another layer of trees coming in here. Okay. So, same thing. We're going to wet underneath the tree. And maybe I'll even start off by just taking some clean water and just pulling up some trees over here and spattering a little bit, keeping things loose and fun. If you don't want anybody to say Dave Smith is a tight painter. Okay, now let's start with mostly our alizarin crimson. All right, that looks pretty purpley here. Let's get more of alizarin. There we go. Still looks, clean my brush a little bit. All right, it's gonna fade off over there, right? All right, and then we're gonna, let's keep this bottom part wet here. Okay, and we're gonna tilt it at a diagonal. And let's just muck this up a little bit. There we go. All right, now I'll get a little stronger here. Get some branches in these guys while it's nice and wet. Just making little U-shaped little smiley faces. Let's spatter some more water. Keep it loose. There we go. Got quite a bit darker, cooler, stronger in pigment. I might protect the tops of the trees now every once in a while, now that I'm getting a little bit tighter. Look at me being careful here. All right. Well, that will look cool. All right. I might be a little bit biased when I say it might look cool. All right. Keeping it soft. Light value over here. We want this just to fade out into the mist. Getting some clean water. All right, looking good. Spattering some water. Letting that water carve right through it. Maybe more, no, just like mostly blue. Ultramarine blue. A few places here. Give it some depth, some shadow areas of the trees, and let's start incorporating some of that indigo, because we're going to need that, use that later. We don't want to, we want to kind of transition into it. And it's a little thicker. The paint's thicker, it's stronger in consistency. So I'm really tilting it and letting it run. I'm going to take some of those colors and just drop it in here. Look at that, brave. So I don't have that big bright white corner there. Protect the tops of the trees. Wipe the edge a little bit. I might tilt it around a bit too. Okay. A little bit too much of a tilt there. See what happens if I just take some clean water, just experimenting here, because I got this big round blob, right? And just pull up some clean water, pull up some trees, spatter some more water, trying to create interesting textures. It's not working fast enough for me. I'm gonna take my Fritz scrubber and soften it. There we go. All right, let's dry it up. And then I'm going to stop drying every once in a while. I'm going to spatter some water on it. All right, let's see what we got. I think it's really, those darks really are helping it pop now, right? And you're getting that dark against the light. It's really fun. And we'll get some more of that over here with some darks coming in here against this light area. So now we're gonna get our darkest darks in here and come down and overlap, run it down here, I guess. And maybe we'll try and leave a little break. I don't know, we'll see if the watercolor gods are on our side here. So we'll start off taking that pseudo sable and wetting underneath, and we'll spatter water. Grabbing rigger brush or reservoir brush. We'll start with some violets. Now, how high do we want this? We want this up here. We don't want a huge gap in between the layers. So let's bring this up a bit. Right up here. And these are, whoa! Somebody spattered a lot of water up there. So if we're going to get that high, then we should wet way up there. Okay. All right. But then we want to bring it down and way down here. Something like that. Okay, that's our road map. I'm going to get my thirsty scrubbing brush, my designated scrubbing brush here, and make sure that stays nice and soft right there. Some more blue here. Let's get some indigo into this thing. So now I'm getting nice and dark, aren't I? We want it to look like layers of trees, one over another. before I forget, get some invisible clean trees over here in case it crawls over there. We want it to be just a light look of some trees. Let's spatter some water. Yep. Let that fade out over there. Or actually, let's break up that. Let that fade out over there. There we go. So the white's not going off the edge of the paper, kind of thing. All right, spatter some water. All right, and let's get, well, first of all, let's, where did I put my brush? Let's get some colors in here. All right, let's get some trees going on over here. Oops. Spatter some water. Let's get some darks into here. Some darks. See what happens. I like to play, right? The heck. Life's short, gotta play. All right.
And guess what? We're going to spatter some water. Alright, we'll add a little bit of some darks here and there. We'll use this pseudo squirrel brush to get some, drop in some darks here and there. Use my scrubbing brush to loosen this up a bit. That's a lot of dark right there. Let's get that to do something for us here. Playing around at this point. Yeah, shouldn't have done that. Oh, maybe it'll be awesome. Who knows? Well, this is looking pretty wild, huh? Let's see. A little more spatter. There's never enough spatter. That's a foolish question. Enough spatter. Always more spatter. All right, I think I can dry it. And every once in a while, as I'm drying, I'll stop the hairdryer and spat it with some water, create some fun textures. Just take that out of there. all right. What do you think? I think it's super fun. I'm going to drop in some birds, and we'll see where I'll put those guys. I don't want them too dark and distracting. And I don't want you to think that this is, you know, super easy. It's just, it is fun, but it just does take some practice and playing around with. Remember, a key to this is having dry paper up in above the trees, because you're not going to get hard edges in your trees and your treetops if everything's soaking wet. So it's got to be spattered water, and don't mist it. And I use this all the time, being able to create lost edges. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can find a good example of a painting that I used. Well, whenever I do a pouring, I'm creating lost edges. Well, definitely in these misty tree paintings like this, you can see the lost edges throughout the water and through the trees. And this one, oh my gosh, all the lost edges. And I'll show you how to blast sun through the trees in a workshop. So again, I'm going to teach some online workshops, so check out my webpage. Again, look at the beautiful mist coming off the water and the mist cutting through the trees. So all soft and lost edges there. All right, so I use this all the time, but I use it not only in misty lake scenes, but I use it in other paintings as well. So where should we throw some birds? Let's see. I'm going to throw a couple birds right in here. And I like the way it is. I don't want to get it too strong. I'm going to grab my sharpiest, pointiest brush for this here. It's that Perla Escoda brush. And let's drop in some really light. I'm going to have a tissue handy in case it's too dark. Real light. I don't want them all same distance apart. All right, something very subtle. I can't even see it, but it's there, and I don't think I need any. I don't want to do any more. I don't want to ruin the effect. I don't want to distract from this beautiful feel that we have. So let me show you a close-up of what we've done here, and then we'll put a mat around it. Okay. All right, and that's what it would look like with a mat on it. So I think that really cleans it up, and it's a pretty dramatic, tiny little painting. It's only, you know, like a, what's that, 1/8 of a sheet of paper. So anyways, gosh, had a super time painting with you guys. Remember to look at the links below, subscribe to my newsletter, look for my online workshops. I've got a lot of paintings I want to show you guys. Stay safe, stay well. Thanks so much for Joe and the crew there to let me do a demonstration. And again, in 2021, I'm teaching a watercolor workshop there, so look for that. Links are below, and hopefully, I'm not sure when you're looking at this video, but I'll be teaching there on a regular basis. All right, stay safe, keep that palette wet. right there, just like that, I think we have a pretty striking little painting. Fairly fast. It's just took a little time to dry in between those different layers. So again, let's review. We started with the bullseye of our primaries, and the one that was in that top left corner, that was using like yellow ochre and alizarin crimson, all right, versus the one I used here. Maybe the yellow was a little bit too bright. Maybe I should have used the yellow ochre, but it's very nice. I like it. So anyways, using the primaries to do the bullseye, yellow, red, and the blue, Joe's red and cobalt blue. And then I use those same colors, light value, distant mountain. Got stronger with my values, started showing some detail, some tops of some trees. And then I started getting cooler. And again, in between each layer, you got to dry. And every layer I did, I spattered water on each layer because I like that organic look to it. And then I got darker and cooler down here. I was just using some of the violets, a lot of blues and ultramarine blue, indigo, Payne's gray, a lot of spattering water, lifting up with a thirsty brush. So let me zoom in on a couple spots and show you what we got. Yeah, not bad, not bad. All right. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. I had a lot of fun doing a fast painting and showing you how to create those lost edges. Please check out my online workshops down below. Check the link or go to my webpage, dsmithfineart.com, and I'll list my workshops there, and hope to see you in person once this is all over. But until then, let's do some painting together online, and then check out my workshops at Cheap Joe's. I've got a 2021 workshop, and I'm not sure when you're watching this video, but hopefully I'll be teaching there on a fairly regular basis, and would love to paint with you in person. All right, stay safe. Thank you, guys.